So I just would ask also the audience, if you have any questions, please share share on the chat. But I do have some very couple of questions that I'm very curious about. So first one, Jiwon, I thought your presentation was fascinating, and I just want to understand more if you when you're developing those interfaces between the mode and visualizing it. So you described there one feedback loop, but what other feedback loops do you see happening so you can monitor that development over time of the mycelium over the build structure? And now what sort of applications you see happening there? If you could elaborate a little bit on that.
Do you mean what we are using the interface system to do with the mycelium?
Yeah, because you highlight, so you have that interface, and you also highlight to visualize the progress of the mycelium, right? So
Yes. Okay.
how
Yeah, I
is this
mean,
going to evolve in your mind?
so the system is workflow is to work for the whole workflow. It's part of the workflow. So when we design a building with the mycelium or some prototypes, the system is part of the whole workflows. So when the system monitorates that the mycelium is going to be erode or the crack, so they can let the designer know we can replace the mycelium with a new one, because we know that the mycelium the lifespan is very short. So I think we talk about in the presentation that we should treat the architecture like something they can regrowth, regenerate. We are going to tend the architecture. So this system, the system is going to one part of the workflow, to let the users know that the mycelium is going to erode, so they can replace it. That's all.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting, because I think there are lots of opportunities there when I start to talk about that feedback loop. Feedback loop.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's an interesting kind of a proposition there, that feedback loop. And I know this is a master's work that you've done, but I think there are lots of interesting things you could do with that, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you.
So so if you have any questions, anyone in the audience, you can feel free to ask. For Johnny, I have a few questions. It's a very interesting presentation, and I love the idea of using ethnography for developing this digital twin, potential digital twin. And my question is, on the ethnographic observations you've developed so far, what are the main themes you've collected and how you are aggregating them? So what dimensions of contrast you're using, and what themes you are collecting, if you get to that point in the ethnography process?
Well, our position right now is digesting all this information.
Yeah.
So what you see right now in the presentation, this is basically all what we've done, but then there is a bunch of data that we still have to digest, such as the interviews and the discussions that we had with all the residents. We need to kind of export that out from all the files and everything. So some of the digital scans that you've seen, that part is kind of done. But then we now have to start working on the ethnographic part. But some things that are quite clear, that when we found a cluster of buildings, and we already kind of 3D scanned these buildings, clustered in one area. A few months later, we managed to find one of the owners of the buildings that we're scanning. And then after a conversation with her, she explained that actually the neighboring 2 or 3 buildings and the buildings above all belong to her family. So just by using 3D scanning and geometry and capturing all this physical data doesn't give you the story behind all these buildings.
No, it doesn't.
So I think the ethnographic part, by understanding it, you can kind of see why certain things have been designed in that way. You can, through just discussions with the residents, and it transforms the way you see space and the architecture
Mhm.
just by understanding that they actually all belong to the same family.
Yeah, there is some work. I've seen some very good work done on heritage preservation, cultural heritage preservation using digital techniques like a photogrammetry and using build information modeling for that. And that has been presented here in the DCIO by a professor from Middlesex University, and she's also an advisor for the Egyptian government on the implementation of BEAM for cultural heritage preservation. And then she explores that, the photogrammetry, reality capture, and then using this as records for having a cultural catalog of that nature. But when you talk about ethnography, it's something that I would love to understand from your research, and I know you in the first stages of your PhD, is first of all, how you see yourself in that ethnography. In other words, is this like a participant observation that you are doing? Do you, for example, intend to live in that village for some time? So that would be very interesting, I think. And the other thing is the actual, when you say digesting all that data, because the reality capture, at least from the visual aspect, the geometrical reality capture is interesting, but there's of course the history behind it, like who owns what and what they did there. And you can get a glimpse of this to an extent from the reality capture. But for example, there are other things in ethnography that other dimensions of contrast, like for example, semantics like means to an end. That would be a very popular semantic in ethnography, in ethnographical theme development that you don't really get from visual capture. And there are other things as well, the sensory stuff like smells and then so on. And you mentioned lots of stuff there, like elements from nature, elements from social behavior and communities of practice, elements of uh, uh, architectural and spatial syntax. Yeah, but I just wonder, like, because towards the end of your ethnography, ideally you would have an inventory of paradigms, and that's what will create the new knowledge that you get from the ethnography. So I'm just wondering, at the very early beginnings, what sort of themes you want to explore, or you leaving this like a blank sheet at the moment to see how much more you can get when you do your field investigation.
The village is actually it will be demolished at the end of this year. So
Right.
the deep ethnography, I kind of already did this, although I didn't live there, but I'm almost there a few days a week.
Mhm.
So my life is actually spent there. And
So it is, in a sense, it is participant. It is participant
yes,
observation. Yeah.
yes, I think, and I also think, within architecture, this is a really important aspect, especially for academia and students to engage with the community. And I think if we didn't engage with the community, we wouldn't have got so far as, visiting 30 or 40 houses, and they invite us for tea, and then we have a chat, and then they also allow us to document their space. So this is something that I will pursue and
Yeah.
hopefully publish.
Yes, and it would be also fascinating to see what they do now and how they behave now. Like, for example, the ritual or the event or the activity of having a tea with you, and how they would change that activity after the village is demolished. You know, how fundamentally they are changing and adapting their behavior because their context disappeared and then they have to move elsewhere. So
Yes,
that would be
they're
interesting.
moving.
Yeah. So that would be very interesting because again, there are like a number of semantic analyses you can do that in their conversations, in the way they manipulate objects and so forth. And in respect to the spaces they used to have and you've recorded, and the spaces that they will have, and you probably will visit them once they are in that new space. So you could have a traceability of space, culture, and behavior. And that could be quite insightful and interesting. And it's great that you have the record, but I would be very curious to see what themes you want to explore, because to have an absolutely complete ethnography of that village and the disappearance of that village and the transplantation of that community and their subcultures elsewhere would take you more than 4 years. So probably you would finish this after you finish your PhD. So you need to scope it right. Yeah.
Thank you for your advice. Yes, I actually want to finish earlier than 4 years, so
Yeah.
I don't want
Yeah.
to drag this on.
So yeah,
But
it's a big chunk of, and I'm noticing the time. We're supposed to be in
okay.
our lunch break now here, but there are a couple more questions, and is for Hee-Yuan. How is scalable? And that's a question from Yeha. So how scalable is the Biotessera framework for designing materials of increasing structural complexity? And and you responded that, right?
Yeah.
You said that. So if you say if you read your response, just so we have this on the record.
So I think the Biotessera design is like right now more focused on the concrete wood materials and myceliums. Actually, we have designed some like drawing system to help the architecture to some buildings. They are going to change the demand of the users and they are change frequently. So we are going to like take off some parts or like add some new parts. We have these joints, but I didn't present them in these presentations, but we do have them.
Great, yeah. And there was a follow-up there as well that Yaha asked, does the framework incorporate biological or chemical constraints? Example, toxicity, synthesis feasibility, into its machine learning objective function as well. And then hopefully you don't have to deal with botulin. And but you did respond something there, right? You said if conditions permit, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, if the condition permits, we will do that. But you know that the master course is like quite short. We only got like 1 month, 1 year to do it. So that's so far what we can do right now.
Yeah, that's really great. I could carry on talking to you two. I think your two presentations were just outstanding. They're really fascinating, and I love them. I could carry on talking about your research for the entire afternoon, but we'll break for lunch. And I know, Johnny, I think you are you in Hong Kong at the moment?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it must be.
It'd be a late dinner now.
Okay.
Yes.
So I just thank you very much for the presentations.